the Cleveland Browns a laughing stock. Of course, it would be a laughing stock. I mean, it's the Cleveland Browns after all. They're trying their best in 2019 not to be a laughing stock anymore, but at 1-1, they're kind of a laughing stock, if you will. So anyway, I know that this is going to be strange, but I'm doing two Cleveland Brown ones because I can't really do a Baltimore Ravens one. So I'm doing one on the old Cleveland Indians, one on the new Cleveland Indians. Or the Cleveland Browns, I should say. The old Cleveland Browns one is the one I'm doing now. The one that technically would have been for Baltimore. So anyway, the 1986 Browns will be the team. But let me give you a rundown of the city of Cleveland. The Cleveland Rams actually won the NFL title in 1945. However, that team moved to Los Angeles, which was strange. Cleveland got themselves a AAFC team. That's the All-American Football Conference. Basically, the Cleveland Browns were going to be the best team around, and they were dominant. They won every AAFC title. Then got to the NFL in 1950, and basically Bert Bell, who was owner of the Philadelphia Eagles and basically the commissioner, basically wanted to put Cleveland in his place. So he decides to schedule the Browns and Eagles on opening night in Philadelphia at night to prove that the NFL was superior to the AFC. Wrong! Wrong! Fucking wrong. He got egg on his face as the Cleveland Browns used their passing arsenal to defeat the Eagles 35-10 and basically prove to everyone that Cleveland could hang with NFL teams. Bert Bell actually came to the dressing room to shake everyone's hand, basically saying that he was wrong. Cleveland actually won against the Eagles later in that year without throwing a pass because they knew that Bert Bell would be angry that all they did was throw passes. So the Cleveland Browns were the dominant force in the NFL in the 1950s and 60s. That big 1964 win over the Baltimore Colts was amazing. I mean, the Colts were very good. You know that. Cleveland, unfortunately, in the Super Bowl era, not so much. They had scrapes and bruises, but unfortunately, Pittsburgh and Houston came of age in the AFC Central. That's where the Browns played. The Browns had this great season in 1980, the Cardiac Kids, if you call it. I was contemplating doing that one because, you know, they won games in the last minute a lot. And also that Cleveland actually got Cardiac Kidded. Like they got their just desserts when the Vikings won on a last play Hail Mary to beat the Browns and got the Vikings the division title. The Browns would be hosting the Oakland Raiders in the wild card game. Now remember this: in the NFL in the 1980s, there were 5 teams that made the playoffs. Each division winner and 2 wild card teams. Those 2 wild card teams would play a 1-game winner take all matchup to decide who would be the wild card team and face the best team in the AFC, whereas the second and third place teams would face each other. And it was huge. The Oakland Raiders ended up winning that wild card game and would take on the Cleveland Browns. I don't know why I said the wild card game. This was an AFC divisional matchup. Browns versus the Raiders, whereas the Bills would take on the Bengals in the next round. In the in the same round. Buffalo winning a division, I can't believe it. So anyway, the Browns would host the Raiders in the big game in Cleveland. The Cardiac Kids had a chance. They were down 14-12. All they had to do was kick a field goal to win the game and then head to either Cincy. Oh, that's actually wrong. That's the wrong season. Sorry, I would say Cincy, but that's technically wrong. It was San Diego. They would have probably faced the San Diego Chargers in the AFC title game. Boy, oh boy, I don't want to start over again. But anyway, Cleveland had a chance. But unfortunately, the weather in Cleveland ruined things, and Cockcroft, their kicker, could not kick for beans, missing a few extra points. So practically, the Browns had to do something about it. What did they do? They decided to pass for it. Right, 88. And all the way in the back of the end zone, Mike Davis was there catching the ball. Oh, he's a Raider, not a Brown. Bad luck, Cleveland. You got cardiac out of things. Then Cleveland bounced around in the mid '80s. They were 8-8. Thank God they won their division. They would never have made the playoffs because of the craziness of the '85-'86 playoffs, especially with three teams from the AFC East: Miami, New England, and the Jets moving on. Wow. But regardless of what happened, the Cleveland Browns got scuffed. We'll talk about the drive and what that did to Cleveland sports psyche in a minute. But first, let's talk about the year after. The Cleveland Browns actually got all the way to the AFC title game when they met Denver as revenge, and on Denver's field too. All they had to do was do to Denver what Denver did to them the previous year, win the game, maybe in overtime on their opponent's field. Unfortunately for them, Ernest Biner takes a massive bump from Randy Lilly. He fumbles the ball. Denver recovers for the time being. So Cleveland sucked. 2 years later, they actually got back to the AFC title game at home against the Broncos, but this time no contest. Broncos easily won that game. Cleveland went through a renaissance. Heck, Bill Belichick beat Bill Parcells in a playoff game, Cleveland versus New England. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they sucked. The balloons got sucked out of the air for them. Here's the thing, though, for Cleveland. That was obviously the year before they were forced out to Baltimore. Now, Belichick was not getting a lot of brownie points. Andre Rison ended up getting a signing bonus that was so big that Art Modell had to go to different banks to get the money he needed to sign him. And, of course, Cleveland Stadium was falling apart. And a lot of people were angry at the fact that the Browns didn't get a new stadium or get super duper renovations. I mean, the Indians got a new ballpark, that being Jacobs Field. The Cavaliers got a new basketball stadium. There was a new science center, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And yet, basically, they didn't give Cleveland money for renovations to Municipal Stadium. And worse was that Municipal Stadium lost a lot of money because their key tenant, the Cleveland Indians, moved out to this new downtown park. So what can you do? Lots of things. However, they started off well. A lot of people said Cleveland was going to make the playoffs easy, peasy, lemon squeezy. Unfortunately, Cleveland fell flat after Art Modell announced his intentions to sell the team to Baltimore. A lot of fans had Modell's head on a platter, and for good reason. I mean, they're like, why the heck didn't he just try to get to the city of Cleveland? And they would have found an owner that would have bought the team and kept the team in Cleveland. But unfortunately, that was all for money. It's all about the money thing. It was one of the worst moves in history. And basically, that actually started a chain of teams in the 90s moving to different parts of America because of the almighty dollar. All that. So Baltimore got their NFL team back after it was taken from them in the middle of the night in 1984. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Colts and their greatest moment of trying to get back. It must be said that that actually was a fantastic move in the Canadian Football League. But let me explain. So, the Browns were going to move to Baltimore. Baltimore had a very solid CFL team that went to the 94 Grey Cup, or the CFL final, if you will, and lost on a last-second field goal by BC's Louis Passaglio. And then the next year, they crushed Calgary and Doug Flutie to win the Grey Cup. Baltimore didn't need the CFL anymore. They had an NFL team, and the NFL took priority over the CFL, even though the CFL games were like sold out. But that was mostly because Baltimore was missing football. So unfortunately for the Baltimore Stallions, they had to relocate quick. And another jilted city that was ruined by a move was Montreal. The Alouettes had to fold in 1987. So basically, the Alouettes moved to, got closed down, and then it was down to 8 teams for the majority of the time until CFL decided to try to expand in the United States, which was a flop after 2 years. But Montreal got their CFL franchise back. They got their Alouettes back. And It took a while, but in 2002 they got the Grey Cup in their possession. They are my favorite CFL team, mind you. So anyway, yeah, Cleveland's move to Baltimore was just sore. Art Modell really felt it for the rest of his life. And worst of all, the Baltimore Ravens ended up winning the Super Bowl 5 years after he dumped the team out of Cleveland. The Ravens weren't hits right away, but they put on a master defense led by Mr. Ray Lewis and not Derek Brooks. There was this Miami Terrell Suggs. That's who it was. They picked up Jonathan Ogden in the draft, who was a good tight end. Tackle. They didn't really have a quarterback. That was the one flaw in the Ravens winning 2001. They didn't have a proven quarterback. Elvis Grbac and Trent Dilfer were the only ones. It's weird seeing Trent Dilfer win a Super Bowl ring as a starter in the Super Bowl. Mark Rippon did that for the Redskins. So anyway, the Ravens were relying too much on defense at times and couldn't really make much of roar. But in 2013, they made a massive roar. The Ravens got to the Super Bowl thanks to a miracle final minute pass in the divisional round in Denver by Joe Flacco to Jacoby Jones. Finally, Baltimore had a proven quarterback. Ravens did it for Art, who died. Art Modell died the previous year, so basically they dedicated the season to Art Modell. And sadly, though, Carba was with them, and they won the Super Bowl. Ravens right now aren't as bad as they are. Lamar Jackson's actually doing pretty well for himself, I must admit. So anyway, let's talk about the 1986 Cleveland Browns. They were a decent bunch. They actually almost got wiped out in the divisional round by the New York Jets. So the Jets won the wild card game. The Jets went to Cleveland to play. Mark Mosley, the field goal kicker for Cleveland, and the only kicker to win an MVP in the season, that would be the 1982 with the Redskins, had a chance to win the game with a field goal. He fucked it up. But anyway, the Jets couldn't capitalize. And the worst part about the Jets was that they had a fantastic lead on the Browns in that 1986 Classic. But sadly, Mark Gastineau roughed Bernie Kosar way after the whistle, 15 yards that helped Cleveland out. But Cleveland got their second chance. Mosley made it and got them to the AFC title game to host the Denver Broncos and John Elway. Cleveland took a 20-13 lead. I forget the guy's last name, but I know Brian, number 85, Brian. I would say Brian Blades, but I don't think that was it. But anyway, they kick the ball. Denver fumbles it and recovers it on their 2-yard line. They had to go 98 yards in 5.5 minutes to tie the game. They were only down by 7. But Elway engineered a drive, touchdown, Mark Jackson. We are tied. And then Rich Carlos hit the winning field goal just inside the upright. Denver goes on to lose to Washington in the Super Bowl, so good news for Browns fans. But anyway, Cleveland Browns, a symbol of mediocreness. I'll talk about the current Cleveland Browns when their thing comes up. So the 1986 Cleveland Browns, obviously, the what if with them is what if they went to the Super Bowl against the New York Giants, who were a massive 14-2. Brian Brennan, that's who the wide receiver was. There's one tiny little problem, though. Because the Rose Bowl is not technically an NFL stadium, they don't put that in the choose stadium. So I randomly selected Chase Stadium in Flushing, New York. Being in New York, we decided to go with medium precipitation, 15 Fahrenheit, and medium wind, just for the heck of it. I'll probably do it twice, like, the coldness of New York compared to a 70-degree day, I think. Oh, it actually went to overtime. So logically, Cleveland loses this thing. You lose. Good day. 13-10. Your final score. Herman Fontenot, a 2-yard receiving touchdown for Cleveland. Carfun ran one for 19 yards, 7-7. Mark Mosley hit one for 35. Rel Allegra hit one from 29, and in overtime he hit from 52. I wonder what they named Pepper Johnson the star player. Joe Morris had 136 yards on the freaking ground. Sims 13 for 22 for 2 interceptions. He wasn't the wizard of the completion percentage that he was. Crowsar 12 for 19, one pick. The pick was by Pepper Johnson, who had 8 tackles and 2 sacks. Frank Minifield and Chris Roggins for the Browns with that. Mosley missed a 46-yarder, and Allegra hit a 52-yarder. It's amazing. Yeah, the fourth quarter was the key. Was the fourth quarter. It winds gusting up to 20 miles per hour. Cleveland was up 10-7. The Giants, with 5 minutes left, had a chance, but Sims got sacked heavily by Carl Hairston. Cleveland had a chance to wrap it up, but they went 3-0. And then the Giants in the final 250, they didn't. Their biggest mistake. They've made 4 straight first down plays. At 1st and 15, they had a reverse for 2 yards. Then Joe Morris hits an 11-yard run. 3rd and 2 at the Cleveland 19. Sims gave it to Morris, who actually gets a 6-yard gain. And after a 1-yard run, Allegra gets a 29-yard field goal to tie the game. Now we go to overtime. The Giants. Oh, I guess they. Fourth and overtime. Okay, right. So now they go to overtime. The Giants have a chance, but they go 3-0 quickly. Cleveland doesn't get anything either. So the Giants at 12:27 gets a chance. They get a first down, but unfortunately, they only get 4 yards after that. Cleveland couldn't go that way. Giants on their own 43, Morris with a run, 1 yard, and then 3 yards to make it 3rd and 6. However, Cleveland made an unnecessary roughness call, 15 yards, so now the Giants were at the 38 of Cleveland. Sims passed to Carfin for a 2-yard gain. Carfin gets a 1 run again. 3rd and 7, Sims tries to throw the ball to Robinson. He got to the line of scrimmage, and then Allegra hits a 52-yarder. Do or die time, and he makes it 13-10. Gee, the Giants win the game. So I decided to say, well, you know what? What if the temperature was 70? Like there was no wind, no precipitation, like normal Super Bowl stadium. Would the Browns have won on that merit? The answer is no. They would have lost 27-9. So I guess it wasn't going to matter. The Giants were going to crush them anyway. Joe Morris, 147 yards on the ground. Sims, 14 for 19. Crowsar, 12 for 27. So yeah, it would never have mattered. It never would have mattered. The Browns would have been fucked anyway. So I guess we can be thankful for that, in a sense. I feel for Cleveland, but they would have been screwed no matter what.